All right. Steve Grace here again, coming to you from Demopolis, Alabama. And I'm going to show you why you're having trouble sharpening your broadheads, especially these Simmons. Now, I feel like I know why some people can't sharpen them, and I think it's two reasons. Because people are sharpening them, people are getting them very sharp. So if you can't sharpen them, that's because you're doing something wrong. And I know from experience, when I have trouble sharpening them, what I've done wrong. And the first thing you got to do when you get a Simmons, when you start sharpening, you have to get a burr. Now, you'll hear Chris Pike say that all the time when he's taking a dull head, sharpening it up. He's got to get that burr. You'll see, it only took me a few minutes to get a burr. Now, what a burr is, maybe because you don't know, I'm looking from a little eraser here, maybe you're having trouble getting a burr. Maybe you don't even know what a burr is. And I'm going to describe it the best way I know how. Let's say you got a Simmons here, or any 2-blade broadhead or 3-blade broadhead, and this one represents a dull head. And you're going to start sharpening it. You're going to either use a file, or you're going to use a sanding rig, or some type of a rotary sander. I like to use a belt sander. It's faster that way, some real coarse sandpaper. And I'm going to lay it in here. I'm going to start taking this down. What you're doing, because you've dulled it, you're going to be sharpening down to this point. You're going to essentially create a new bevel. You're going to start taking off this material right here. And you're going to keep working it until you got a flat edge there and it starts coming to a point. Alright, at this point, you may start getting a little burr. You may not. If it's really dull, you may not. You may just create a bevel on that one side and that's it. And as soon as you see you've got enough bevel there, you start on this other side. But once you start on this other side and you start taking this material down, when you get to this point, and only when you get to the very edge of the broadhead will a burr begin to form. And that burr is almost like, I don't really know how to describe what it is. It's going to be really rough, and if you're really looking close or got a magnifying glass, you can see that burr begin to form. It's like flakes of steel that's extending from the new point of the edge, and it's very rough and it feels very sharp, but it's very delicate. When you start removing material from this side, and then you come back to this side over here and you start forming that burr will actually fold to this side over here. Then when you get on this side and start working this back down, it will fold over this way. That burr is real flimsy. It's extending from the new edge that you've created. Now once you get this burr with your rough material, say your sandpaper or a file, you're ready to go on to a more smooth material, something like sharpening material, something like a diamond stone or jewel stick, or I like to use my round ceramic rods. And at that point, you're trying to remove the burr by continually sharpening from side to side. And that edge will get sharper, and that burr will get more and more disconnected, and you'll start seeing the little flakes come off. Now, let me add this. I will say this. Sometimes when you're creating a burr and you're creating it with a sanding rig or a file or whatever, you won't create it all equally throughout the length of the broadhead. I know on the Simmons, I'm bad to get a burr close to the tip, say the first ½ inch and about the last ½ inch. And in this swept curved edge, that's usually the last place that I get a burr. And it's to the point now, I know that, so I spend extra time in this curved area. That's where I start. I start with that area because I create a new keener bevel, and that's not necessary when sharpening the Simmons, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. That's the second thing that you're doing wrong. First thing you're doing wrong is you're not getting that initial burr. Now, once I get my burr, I'm going to start working it on the ceramic, and usually I go to the diamond stone next, and I hit it a few times, but I won't knock the burr off, but I'll get it a lot more where it's almost to fall off. Some of it might fall off on my diamond stone, and then I go to the ceramic crotch sticks and work it until the burr falls off. And well, sometimes I finish with sandpaper, and you can really see that metal coming off. The burr will be coming off and be on that black sandpaper. It's easy to see. So if you're not getting the burr, it's basically impossible, especially if you're starting with a dull head. It's basically impossible to get it sharp. That's the first thing you should attempt to do, because going from a burr, a broadhead with a bevel that you created a burr, is the easiest broadhead there is to sharpen. Now I'm going to go to the second mistake people make. And it doesn't matter where you create a new Keener bevel or you're starting off with a Simmons that's brand new, it's already got a bevel. You can make this mistake either way. Now this right here represents a broadhead with a coarse bevel, and this represents my crotch sticks, and that's about the angle they are. And as you can see, if you were to take a broadhead and crotch sticks, the way most people do is they hold the broadhead completely vertical and you go side to side like this, one side to the other. Well, as you can see, and I've had this happen, when you got a broadhead that's very coarse, sharp, and the crotch sticks are fairly keen, it isn't impossible to ever sharpen this broadhead. This is the most frustrating scenario you can get in. You're sitting there sharpening, sharpening, sharpening. Unless you got about 100 years to create a new bevel with a crotch stick, you're never gonna get it sharp, because you're not sharpening to the tip. You're actually sharpening the back side of the bevel. You're actually honing the back side of the bevel, and it's a lot of material to remove. You're not going to remove it with your sharpening utensils that's designed for a finished edge. You're just not. And now with a brand new Simmons, I can sharpen them with my crotch stick. But what I have to do, this is without creating a new bevel like I usually do. And I just sharpened one right out of the pack just a few minutes ago to prove to myself once again that I could do it. But I had to hold this. I couldn't hold it vertical because I would have been in that scenario I just showed you. I had to hold it at a steeper angle and turn it into the crotch sticks and go back and forth. I started with a diamond stone. I had to hold a high pitch of an angle to be on the edge because the Simmons come with a pretty good bevel. And argue as you want what bevel you want. If you want 25 degrees, I think that's pretty close to what the Simmons come with. Maybe 24, maybe 23. I don't know exactly what it is. I know it's fairly steep, and you have to, when you're sharpening it, you have to be, it's as steep or slightly steeper than the bevel it comes with, holding the angle up. And then when you get on crotch sticks or your jewel stick or whatever you use, you also have to hold a coarser angle than the bevel, so that you'll be working that edge, and it won't take but very few licks, and you'll be done. It'll be sharp. Now, once, like I said, this scenario can happen even with a newly created Keen bevel. I may create say a 20-degree bevel so that I can hold the broadhead straight up. But still, if these sticks are at a 19-degree bevel, I'm still not going to sharpen it. I've got to get my bevel be keener than the bevel that these crotch sticks create when you hold the head vertical. And then I can hold it completely vertical and work it like the thing is really designed to do. And it takes seconds to sharpen. The keener edge is easier to sharp. But as I said before, and I'll go back to the burr thing, when I'm creating my new bevel, I have to pay attention that I get a burr all the way down. I get frustrated sometimes. I can't get the thing sharp. It'll be sharp here, it'll be sharp here, and it won't be sharp here. And 100% of the time, I have to go back to my core stone and get that burr all in that area where it's not sharpening up. I have to get a burr. It'll be a head that I'm impatient, can't see like I used to could. I don't really see that I got a burr, and I don't, in too big of a hurry, and I don't get a burr from the tip to here. It's impossible for me to sharpen it without getting that burr. So number one is to get that burr from the tip all the way to here. Number two, when you start using your finer stones, whatever it may be, whether it be cardboard with some sharpening paste on it, whatever, you've got to hold that head so that you're not sharpening the back of the bevel, which is here and here. You got to be sharpening the front of the bevel, in front of the bevel being the edge. The edge, that's where your material has to be hitting. You have to hold the angle that will allow yourself to be sharpening the edge and not the back of the bevel. So it's almost no doubt in my mind, if you're not sharpening a Simmons razor sharp or whatever broadhead, you're probably not getting the burr to start with. And then secondary cause is you're trying to sharpen too keen, keener than the bevel of the broadhead is designed for, and you're hitting on the back of the bevel and not the edge. That's the two reasons. I'm almost positive that's why you can't sharpen them. You're doing those two things wrong. If you do those two things right, sharpening will be easy.